Greetings, friends. Jason here for AxodysFC. It is Wednesday evening. Finally, some new transfer news. Although it's not the big deals that everybody's waiting and hoping for. This is more another young for the future player. It's the one that was rumored fairly recently. There's an 18-year-old player from the K-League in Korea. His name is Min-Hyuk, and he's a very skilled with the ball, winger, speedy, fairly short in stature, low to the ground kind of player, and 7 goals, 3 assists in his first 22 games. Again, he's only just turned 18, or will be turning 18 soon, something to that effect. Very young. Will be immediately loaned back to his team to finish out the season, and then the plan will be to come into Spurs in January. And so, very intriguing player. Found at least one video where some Korean Spurs fans were, pretty excited about him, and I think he's a guy that Spurs have to be kind of hoping could develop into a similar profile to his son in terms of capturing that South Korea market a little bit, also, but a skilled player certainly, and to be doing that well in the Korean League at this young age, still in high school essentially. It's just like our other young players. Big potential, big upside, relatively inexpensive. Now I think, I forgot to write down the number, but I think the fee that's being tossed around is only like 3 or 4 million euros or something like that, which is, for Spurs purposes, very inexpensive generally, and worth the investment. And so, very, very interesting to see yet another player kind of in this super young, but very promising player profile. And it's cool to see guys that know the league a little bit and are familiar with him being excited for Spurs to get him. And and definitely I will, like that channel that I found, I forget, it's called like BBIM guys or something like that. I'll have to track it down, but they're guys I want to add to my list of people to follow, and see, because I'm sure they have interesting things, and they'll be able to report on this guy throughout the rest of the season. So that's cool. On top of that, a little bit of transfer developments with Bryan Gil. Sounds like Girona from Spain are working on signing him, and no idea what the terms are yet, but this was actually kind of timely for me. I didn't know too much about Girona, but I've been watching the new La Liga documentary, basically, that was from last season. There's a Netflix show that followed the whole La Liga season. I think it's like 8 episodes total. I just finished like the 4th one, and it's pretty cool in that it's not like it follows the whole league, but it tends to focus on a couple teams per episode. And for instance, the 3rd one was about the 2 Basque teams, Real Sociedad and Athletic Club, and their rivalry and the way that they do their teams or whatever. Anyway, episode 4 happened to be about Girona, and how they've had exceeded expectations, and they had just been promoted up like only a season or two prior to that, and they've been, really progressing well. And anyway, it ended up like halfway. They didn't quite beat Real Madrid for the what they call the winter champions. Basically, whoever's has the most points at the halfway mark. But they were like nearly there, and they had scored 48 points, which was like a completely remarkable achievement for a team other than like Atleti or Real Madrid or Barcelona, one of the traditionally big teams. And so anyway, that's very interesting to me that Girona's would be interested. Obviously, they qualified for Champions League at the end of the season, which I think is a first ever for them. And so obviously they have a little bit more money at their disposal than they usually would have, probably. And presumably they're looking to bolster their depth and have that squad depth that you need for when you're competing in Europe and other things. So anyway, it seems like an up-and-coming team that Bryan Gil would be interested in. And their Girona's kind of a team or an area that I think normally they're in Catalonia, just a little bit northeast of Barcelona, essentially, but much smaller. And so, like, people in the area, I get the impression, were, because Girona was probably not even in La Liga 1, most of the time, and were in a lower division. And so, their big team that people would root for would be Barcelona. But with Girona doing so well, people can return to their home team, kind of, which is cool. So anyway, exciting for that community. And the coach, Michel Sanchez, I think is his name, really seemed, there was a lot of one-on-one interviews with him in that episode 4, and he really seems like a player's coach and a guy that is really interested in developing players. So definitely seems like a good opportunity for Bryan Gil. And so I hope it works out for all parties, that we're willing to part with him for a reasonable amount, and they have a little bit of money to spend on it, and he wants to go there. So very intrigued to see how that develops. And and I'm interested in following La Liga a little more, I think, this coming season, just to see what's going on. Whereas last season I kind of paid more attention to the Bundesliga, kind of expanding my horizons a little bit more maybe this season. So anyway, and one final random note, kind of related to this, the previous episode about the two Basque rivals was particularly interesting to me because I found out from my brother, who had taken one of the genetic heritage tests or whatever, that although our family is mostly English or Scandinavian heritage, is Scottish, some too, a little bit of Irish, but then randomly there was 2% Basque, which anyway and that was just kind of like a big outlier in our heritage. So I was kind of intrigued to find out more about those teams in that episode. And and I'm just curious kind of where in our ancestry we have that part of our heritage come in. So something I'll probably research more in the future. But anyway, I've been enjoying that series quite a bit, and I'd recommend it if you have Netflix. So on that note, I'm going to wrap up and call it a day. As always, thanks for tuning in. Please like and subscribe if you enjoy these. And remember, to dare is to do.